So what we're going to take a look at next is creating an authorization policy so that any request we make to our API requires that we send up an authorization header with a bearer token. And let's go back to VS Code, and in order to do this, we'll need to go to our startup.cs class to add this authorization policy. And what we'll need to do, where we're using our services.addMVC, we're going to need to pass in some options into this particular method. So what we'll do is we'll specify opt and then add an expression. And in here what we'll say is var policy equals, and we'll say new authorization policy builder, and we'll need to bring in ASP.NET Core authorization, and then we'll say require authenticated user, and then we'll say build. And this policy will ensure that every request requires basically an authenticated user. And then what we'll do is we'll say opt.filters.add, and then we'll specify a new authorize filter, and we'll pass in our policy. And we'll also need to bring in ASP.NET Core MVC authorization. And just add the semicolon at the end. So what this means now is that any of our requests will require to be authorized, and if I try and get to the activities again now and click send, then I get a 401 unauthorized. And that's going to apply to every endpoint in our application. Even our values are going to be protected with authorization now, which is what we're looking for, but the problem is that also our login is also protected with authorization, and that's not the behavior we're looking for. Otherwise our users will never be able to log into our application. So let's go and make our user controller, and we'll set this to allow anonymous access. So just above the user controller, so that we affect every method inside this particular controller, I'm going to say allow anonymous. And we'll need to bring in using ASP.NET Core authorization. And this is basically going to override our policy because it's set at a lower level. Our authorized filter policy is for the application as a whole, whereas this only applies to a single controller. And because we're setting it at this level, it overrides the policy. So let's go back to our login method, and what we should be able to do now is send this again, and this time we get a 200 OK response. So we've now got our app set up for authentication, and what we need to do next is to allow users to register to our app, and we'll take a look at that next.